Hey students, всем привет! С вами, как всегда, я Энн, учитель английского, и в этом видео я хочу попробовать с вами новый формат. Хочу сегодня обсудить с вами последние новости, а именно недавно была совершена пересадка свиного сердца человеку, и этот человек пришел в себя после операции.
The US man has become the first person in the world to get a heart transplant from a genetically modified pig.
Довольно интересная новость, да? Мы прочитаем ее сегодня с вами из первоисточника, газеты BBC, конечно же, на английском языке, и выучим с вами несколько полезных фраз и слов. Alright, so as I said, this article is from the BBC newspaper and the heading is Man gets genetically modified pig heart in world first transplant. Yeah, isn't it exciting? Yeah, I think it's very interesting. So let's look at this man and the surgeon of him, I think, yeah. So it's a doctor, obviously. A US man has become the first person in the world to get a heart transplant from a genetically modified pig. David Bennett, 57, is doing well 3 days after the experimental 7-hour procedure in Baltimore, doctors say. So, as you can see from the translation, the procedure is a medical operation. Let's look at the examples. The procedure is carried out under general anesthetic. Or the procedure is done, she is in recovery, yeah? So, операция, procedure. The transplant was considered the last hope of saving Mr. Bennett's life, though it is not yet clear what his long-term chances of survival are. So here we have two highlighted words. The first one is considered, was considered, and you may see that here we use passive voice with this phrase because we're talking about the transplant here. So, and was considered means was believed to be or was thought to be. For example, for the Greeks, a beautiful body was considered direct evidence of a beautiful mind. Or we are doing what was considered impossible to do. We are doing what was considered impossible to do. Yeah, was considered. The next word here is though, so it's the same as although, and usually we use this word when there is some contradiction between two parts of the sentence. Let's look at the examples here. They're coming next week, though I don't know which day. Yeah, so it's like but. They're coming next week, though I don't know which day. And the second example here is your logic is consistent, though horrifying. Yes, so can you see the contradiction between these two parts? It was either die or do this transplant, Mr. Bennett explained the day before the surgery. I know it's a shot in the dark, but it's my last choice, he said. It was either die or do this transplant. Yeah, either or. So, either or used when referring to a choice between two possibilities. Yes, so in Russian you may see it in the translation либо. Yeah, let's look at the examples. We can either eat now or after the show. It's up to you. Either you leave now or I call the police. Either you leave now or I call the police. The second phrase in this sentence is a shot in the dark, and this is the phrase which we can describe as an attempt to guess something when you have no information or knowledge about the subject and therefore cannot possibly know what the answer is. So in Russian it's like пальцем в небо or догадка, наугад. So let's look at the examples. You know, maybe this is a shot in the dark, she didn't mean to send it. I don't know, it's a shot in the dark, but maybe it has something to do with Harris. Doctors at the University of Maryland Medical Center were granted a special dispensation by the US medical regulator to carry out the procedure, on the basis that Mr. Bennett, who has terminal heart disease, would otherwise have died. So let's focus on the first one, were granted, and here we have passive voice, as you can see, yeah. Were granted. What is grant? It's the verb, yes. So grant means to give or allow someone something, usually in an official way. So in Russian it's like было, выдано, было разрешено, yeah, because it's a passive voice again. So let's look at the examples. A few weeks ago I was granted a day off from prison. A few weeks ago I was granted a day off from prison. The next example is, the country was granted independence in 1950. The country was granted independence in 1950. Good. Now let's look at the difficult word here. Yeah, I think it's difficult. Dispensation. Yeah, what does it mean? So dispensation in Russian is разрешение, as you can see. And in English, dispensation is special permission to do something that is not usually allowed. Yeah, so it's разрешение in Russian. So the example is, the couple have requested a special dispensation from the church to allow them to marry. Or, my guess is you didn't get dispensation from the Pope, yeah? The next word here is regulator. So regulator is a person or organization whose job is to control an activity or process and make certain that it operates as it should, yeah? So in Russian it's регулирующий орган. So let's look at the examples here. Federal regulators prepare to set stricter rules for cars and fuel. Countries must decide whether to have a single regulator covering banking, insurance or securities, or multiple specialized regulators. So regulator, yeah, regulator, регулирующий орган. So next phrase is carry out. Carry out is to do or complete something, especially that you have said you would do or that you have been told to do, yeah, so выполнить. Dr. Carter is carrying out research on early Christian art. Or the hospital is carrying out tests to find out what's wrong with her. The next word here is terminal. Terminal is a disease or illness which is leading gradually to death. Yeah, so she has terminal cancer or she had a terminal lung disease, смертельный, на последней стадии here. He had been deemed ineligible for a human transplant, a decision that is often taken by doctors when the patient is in a very poor health. And here we have two words, deemed, признан, and ineligible, непригодный. So to deem is to come to think or judge, yeah, считать, признавать. The principal will take whatever action she deems appropriate in this case. The principal will take whatever action she deems appropriate in this case. The area has now been deemed safe. So ineligible is something not allowed to do or have something according to particular rules. Неподходящий, непригодный. For example, she was declared ineligible for the competition because he worked for a company that ran it. Or they are ineligible for a loan. The pig used in the transplant had been genetically modified to knock out several genes that would have left the organ being rejected by Mr. Bennett's body, the AFP News Agency reports. So, the next phrase is knock out, yeah? So, knock out, it means get rid of something, yeah? To eliminate something, избавиться от чего-то. For example, we can say they knocked out illegal gambling. Yeah, they knocked out. Они избавились. Yeah. All right. So let's go to the next phrase. Led to. Led to is in the past. Это в прошедшем времени. А в настоящем времени мы бы сказали lead to. To lead to is to cause someone to do something. Yeah, привести к чему-то. And the example is, it never led to anything good. Or reducing speed limits should lead to fewer deaths on the roads. For the medical team who carried out the transplant, it marks the culmination of years of research and could change lives around the world. And here we can see the phrase carried out, which we've seen already in the previous paragraph, yeah? Carry out, проводить. Surgeon Butler Griffith said the surgery would bring the world one step closer to solving the organ shortage crisis. Currently, 17 people die every day in the US waiting for a transplant, with more than 100,000 reportedly on the waiting list. Here we have two words. The first one is shortage, нехватка, and in English we can describe it as a situation in which there is not enough of something. Yeah, нехватка. There's a shortage of food and shelter in the refugee camps. The long hot summer has led to serious water shortages. Yeah, нехватка. So the next word is reportedly. Reportedly means according to what many people say, как сообщается, согласно отчету. So let's look at the examples. New York is reportedly a very exciting place to live. The actress is reportedly very upset by the incident. Yeah, reportedly, как сообщается. Dr. Christine Law, chair of the Department of Surgery at the University of Maryland School of Medicine, was in the operating theater during the surgery. So, and look at the next one. Dr. Christine Law, chair of the Department of Surgery. So what is chair? In the translation you may see that it's заведующая, and in English we can describe it as the official position of a person in charge of a meeting, official group or organization. Let's look at the examples. Who will take the chair at the next meeting? All the questions should be addressed to the chair. And the next phrase is the operating theater, and for me it's really fascinating. The operating theater in Russian means операционная, yeah? So it's not the theater. So, and in English we can describe it as a special room in which people are operated on in a hospital. Операционная. So let's look at the example. There is an operating theater to be opened at the Cochin Hospital. Yeah, so it's just a noun, operating theater. He's at more of a risk because we require more immunosuppression, slightly different that we would normally do in a human-to-human transplant. How well the patient does from now is, you know, it's never been done before, so we really don't know, she told the BBC. And only one phrase, at more of, yeah, at more of, it means the same as more, больший, yeah, в большем в данном случае. So let's look at the examples, because more is used here with at and of, which could be interesting. Put it in at more of an angle, yeah, put it in at more of an angle. Or do you think people with visible disabilities are at more of a disadvantage in the world than people with invisible disabilities? People die all the time on the waiting list, waiting for organs. If we could use genetically engineered pig organs, they'd never have to wait. They could basically get an organ as they needed it. The next phrase is genetically engineered, and it's a rather difficult one. Генно-инженерно модифицированные, yeah? So genetically engineered, it's like генно-модифицированный, генно-инженерно модифицированный, and the example could be like communicating about the risks and benefits of genetically engineered food, for example. Plus, we wouldn't have to fly all over the country at night time to recover organs to put them into the recipients, she added. We have the word recipients. Here we translate it as принимающий, принимающий пациент, принимающий человек. And in English we can describe it as a person who receives something. For example, former Nobel Peace Prize recipients include Jimmy Carter and Barack Obama. Or he was a recipient of the Civilian Service Award. Yeah? The possibility of using animal organs for so-called xenotransplantation to meet the demand has long been considered, and using pig heart valves is already common. So here we have two phrases. The first one is to meet the demand, удовлетворение спроса, and the example could be here: production in the main organic markets will not be enough to meet the demand. Yeah. And the last word here is valves. Valves are the veins that controls the flow of blood. Yeah, клапаны. So they are the veins that control the flow of blood. It was a weak heart valve that caused her death. In October 2021, surgeons in New York announced that they had successfully transplanted a pig's kidney into a person. At the time, the operation was the most advanced experiments in the field so far. And the easy word advanced. Advanced means modern and recently developed in Russian передовой. And we can say that technology is advanced, for example, or I'm applying to the advanced science program, yeah? So передовой. However, the recipient of that occasion was brain dead with no hope of recovery. Here we have the last phrase, on that occasion. Occasion, it's a particular time, especially when something happens or has happened, yeah? So it's like случай, раз и так далее. So we have that, it means в тот раз, yes, on that occasion. Let's look at the examples. I seem to remember that on that occasion he was with his wife. Or, and on that occasion it was the man who came first. So now let's summarize all of the words which we learned today and try to translate them. Procedure, what is it? Операция. Consider, считать. Though, однако. Either or. Либо, либо. A shot in the dark. Наугад. Пальцем в небо. To grant. Выдавать. Разрешать. Dispensation. Разрешение. Да, обычно мы говорим dispensation, когда речь идет о каком-то официальном разрешении, да, можно написать сюда. Regulator, регулирующий орган. Carry out, выполнять. Terminal, смертельный. To deem, признавать, считать. Ineligible, неподходящий. To knock out, избавляться. To lead to, приводить. Shortage, нехватка. Reportedly, как сообщается. Chair of the department, заведующий. Ну, в данном случае department отделом. Operating theater, операционная. At more of, в большем. Genetically engineered, генно модифицированный. Recipients, получатели. To meet the demand, удовлетворять спрос. Valves, клапаны. Hard valves, да, у нас были. Advanced, продвинутый. And on that occasion, в том случае. Alright, students, надеюсь, вам было сегодня интересно узнавать со мной последние новости. Если это так, обязательно ставьте лайк под этим роликом, чтобы я понимала и снимала больше такого же контента. Ну и, конечно же, подписывайтесь на мой канал, чтобы не пропустить новые видео. See you next time!